Eddy Neveaux, and I am part of the SAP Business One Solution Architects team. I'd like to present today the SAP Business One Integration for SAP NetWeaver, or B1ISN. There is a similar presentation that has been recorded for this solution that focuses on SAP Business Suite integration to SAP Business One. This presentation will focus on using the solution as a generic integration platform and showing integration between multiple instances of SAP Business One. In this presentation, I will give you an introduction and an overview of the solution. Again, there is a similar presentation on B1ISN. However, I will cover some of the highlights from that presentation of the platform in case you have not seen the previous presentation. I will talk about the value of using B1ISN as a generic integration platform for your customers. We will look at some of the highlights of the current 2007 release of B1ISN, as well as look at out-of-the-box connectors and content available with B1ISN. I will then show you a brief demonstration of the sales from local stock business scenario that shows integration between a headquarters using Business One and a subsidiary using Business One. Lastly, I will show you where you can get more information about and on B1ISN. SAP understands that it can be difficult when a business runs disparate systems within the organization, as this can promote a lack of control over data and give poor visibility into company-wide processes. To overcome these issues, companies may try to create custom integrations to disparate systems, which in turn can cause inefficiency due to non-standardized processes and can incur high cost to the organization to maintain these systems. These pain points can also cause poor collaboration between employees within and between companies. The SAP Business One Integration for SAP NetWeaver, or B1ISN, can unify business processes around a single generic platform. You can see the quote from Bob Anderson, Vice President of Research at Gartner, where he discusses the need for adopting a common platform within the company's ecosystem, and how doing so can have a significant impact on how companies can meet and quickly respond to customers and market demands. He also goes on to state the need for real-time visibility and control within the company's ecosystem. B1ISN as a solution can provide this. SAP understands the challenges that integration can impose on companies. Statistically, more than 30% of IT dollars are spent integrating software within the organization. This manual integration can lead to long implementation and time spent on stabilization, which can result in a high total cost of ownership. Also, integration between disparate systems requires deep technical knowledge and can have a high cost of maintenance due to the lack of flexibility. The SAP Business One Integration for SAP NetWeaver is a generic platform that allows you to easily configure and run and build and run integrations between these systems. What we discuss in this presentation is the seamless integration of SAP Business One with another instance of SAP Business One and the ability for rapid connection. The demonstration will look at an instance of SAP Business One as a central headquarters that interacts with another instance of SAP Business One as a subsidiary and pass intercompany transactions between the two of them. This is just one example of using B1ISN as a generic integration platform, and there are many others. The B1ISN solution comprises out-of-the-box, pre-configured integration content for some of the most common subsidiary integration scenarios. You have config and run, which is the setup of existing integration solution based on pre-configured content, and build and run, where you have the ability to develop new business content with built-in step-by-step procedures. B1ISN offers direct database access or flat file interaction, as well as web service interaction, enabling connection to third-party systems. Offers tools giving the ability to customize or extend capabilities of existing content, or you can develop new content via a structured framework and guidance through the development tasks. The administration console provides guided procedures to set up integration scenarios very rapidly and help administer and monitor the subsidiary integration scenarios during normal runtime operations. Using B1ISN as the generic integration platform, the value to your customers is operational efficiency through exposing full transparency of data and standardizing and automating company-wide processes. Fast implementation using proven out-of-the-box business scenarios enables rapid setup of other subsidiaries within a very short period of time. B1i SN allows for the easy customization and extensibility of business scenarios using flexible technology, as well as allows for the rapid development of new integration content using a model-driven structured framework and associated tools. All of this data is available while providing the customer with a very low total cost of ownership because the platform has a very lightweight architecture as well as follows world integration standards such as XML, XSLT, and XPath. Administration is also greatly reduced as the systems are integrated using a generic platform. In the 2007 release of B1i SN, you have out-of-the-box content for the following release scope systems: SAP Business One 2005, 2007, and SAP Business One 88, which is currently in ramp-up, as well as connectivity to the SAP Business Suite for the different versions that you see listed in Bullet 2, including ECC6, and BI/BW integration for the content releases 353 and 703. We also provide out-of-the-box content that was available in previous B1i SN releases, such as master data distribution for products and customers, and intercompany purchasing for sales from local stock and sales from central stock, as well as we deliver new out-of-the-box content around customization of data distribution and management reporting. This slide shows an overview of the out-of-the-box connectors available with B1i SN. You can see that B1i SN has native connectivity for SAP Business One via the DI API. B1i SN also has native connectivity for SAP ERP via RFC, ALE, XIPI, SAP NetWeaver, database systems such as SQL, any HTTP system, flat file, as well as web services. Connectivity is simply defined during landscape setup, which we can discuss in the demo. Here we see the overall architecture of a scenario where an instance of SAP Business One is integrated to another instance of SAP Business One, or more, via B1i SN. You can see that many of the required components, such as the DI API, are installed as part of SAP Business One's installation, and then components such as the Event Center and the DI proxy are part of the B1i SN server installation. It is these components put together in this example that allow for easy setup and integration of one or more Business One systems. This slide gives you an overview of master data integration available. You can see the logic that happens behind the scenes and is seamless to the user when adding, updating, or creating a business partner and or an item, as an example. Here we see the example of the sales from local stock business scenario and the intercompany transactions that flow between SAP Business One as a subsidiary and SAP Business One as the headquarters. You can see the transactions from the subsidiary through B1i SN to the headquarters, such as a user in the subsidiary instance of SAP Business One creates a purchase order. When the purchase order is added, it goes through the B1i SN system and creates a sales order, a corresponding sales order, over in the headquarters system. When the headquarters system, or the person at the headquarters, picks up the sales order, when they generate a delivery, it'll automatically generate a good receipts PO over in the subsidiary system. Also, you can notice between the two, when the sales order has been created, it also will update the purchase order with pertinent information such as the sales order number and other information on the purchase order back in the subsidiary. You can also see once the goods receipt is picked up, it will create the appropriate receivable transaction over on the headquarters side. And from the headquarters side, once the receivable has been created, it can also generate the appropriate payable. And with that, I'm going to go and stop here and give you a demo going back to this slide, which will take us, or show us, creating a purchase order in the subsidiary to generating the sales order in the headquarters. From the sales orders, we'll create a delivery in the headquarters, and it will create back in the subsidiary a goods receipt PO. Okay. What we see here is I have two instances of SAP Business One running. I have an SAP instance called the headquarters and the subsidiary. I'll open the headquarters first. You can see the instance I have here, and then the subsidiary. And based on the sample integration I showed you, I'm going to, within the subsidiary, I'm going to generate a purchase order. To order inventory from our headquarters. And the example of sales from local stock, when the subsidiary runs out of inventory, where they're ordering it from to put into their own inventory is from their headquarters. So I'll pick my vendor, which is my headquarters, who I'm purchasing from. You can see my purchase order number for future reference is 41. And I'm going to change this particular date here to be the 6th. Change this. Pick my item. I'm purchasing from my headquarters, and I'm going to go ahead and add that. Now that my purchase order has been added, I'm going to go over to B1i SN. And within B1i SN, I'm going to go into my application manager. And open up my subsidiary integration console. And specifically, what I want to do is, for the moment, go into monitoring and look at my message log. And what I want to do is the message log will show us the transactions as they occur between the systems that we've defined for the B1i SN server. Now normally you wouldn't have to look at this. Again, it is a log to keep track of information in the event that there's a situation that you need to troubleshoot. Typically this happens behind the scenes. In the process of this demo, so that you can see what happens, I'm going to pick the date. Again, it defaults to the date of my server, which is where I'm processing my transactions. I'll click Display Refresh. Now that this is refreshed, I'm going to scroll down through the other transactions. Now when you look at the log, specifically the areas that you see transactions that have been successful, meaning they've gone through the business process and they've processed in the correct manner. But you can also see from a troubleshooting standpoint, you can see messages that have possibly failed and what reason they may have failed for, which would be under the message result here. You can also see messages that are in the process of being processed in the event that you open this up and it's not finished moving between the systems. And then of course you can see any filtered messages. And a filtered message would be where there may be an issue. In this case, if you're in the wrong company or if you processed a transaction that didn't contain any lines, as an example, that would be filtered, meaning that it stopped it from processing, but it can be corrected and then resubmitted. If we look here through the slew of information, basically we're looking at the last line. Now the last line in this case is the transaction that I just processed. Specifically, how I know that and how I can tell is that first and foremost is telling me where it's coming from. So my transaction as I started was a transaction, in this case a PO, as defined here, from 2007, that's the version of Business One, from the subsidiary. If you remember when I had mentioned it, the purchase order that was generated was purchase order 41. That purchase order was to be transferred to the headquarters. When it gets transferred to the headquarters from it, we want it to automatically generate a sales order. This is the receiver system, and what's been received. This is the business integration unit that creates the sales order. And the document number that was created in the headquarters is 4235, and that this was successful with the date and timestamp. If I go over to the headquarters, and I go under Sales AR and Sales Orders. And I go to the last transaction. You can see 4235 is coming from the subsidiary. So this is a customer as defined in the headquarters system, subsidiary. This is the document. If you remember back, our purchase order from the subsidiary system was purchase order 41. Through the extension of the BIU, or the business processes, we've told it to put that particular field as a reference in this field here, the customer reference number. As well as what you can see is we've also populated the remarks with information about the PO. So we're saying that this sales order is based on PO number 41, which came from our subsidiary. If I go back to my process monitor, if you remember back to the PowerPoint, something also should be generated, which is information from the sales order going back and updating the purchase order. So we're going to just refresh this first and have a look at the transactions generated by that. Once it's been refreshed, if I scroll back down, you can see a second transaction here. Now this is coming from the headquarters, specifically the sales order, which was 4235, to the subsidiary, updating the PO number 41, and it was successful. If we go back to the subsidiary and we look at the purchase order, the last one created, what we can see is that we have the purchase order, but what happened is we also updated the customer reference number, specifically with the sales order number from the headquarters. So when looking at this purchase order, a user within the subsidiary system, they can easily, if they had to call headquarters, reference the sales order number that was generated. Now I'm going to switch back over to the headquarters. Now in the headquarters, now that I have this sales order, I'm just going to say OK, reopen it. Last one. Again, everything is basically the same. However, now I'm going to generate from the sales order a delivery. I have the stock that I can send that the subsidiary has requested. I'm going to generate the delivery. Again, you can see the subsidiary, the purchase order number. In the remarks, you can also see that it's based on subsidiary PO number 41 and what sales order it's based on, so the appropriate information. I'm going to go ahead and click Add. Now if I go back to my process monitor, and I'm going to refresh this, now it's been refreshed. I'll scroll down again to the bottom of my list. You can also see in this particular transaction that from the headquarters, specifically the sales order, that I'm still waiting for, this was my last one, I'm still waiting for my delivery information. Again, I'm going to click Display Refresh. Now that it's been refreshed, you can see again my transaction from the headquarters. In this case, you can see it's a delivery. So again, you can see the transaction from the system is DELV, from the sender system. You can see the number of the delivery that is going to the subsidiary, and it's generating in the subsidiary a goods receipt, and that goods receipt is number 22, and that this was successful. I'll go back over to my subsidiary from Business One. I'll close the purchase order. First, I'm going to open the purchase order itself. Go to the last one. Again, you can still see the same information. Now I'll open the goods receipt PO. And I'll go to the last transaction. And you can see that I have now a goods receipt PO, number 22, generated from the headquarters. It was generated based on headquarters delivery 107. And you can see that this was all based on purchase order 41, which was the original. So you can see the information as it was transferred behind the scenes between the two systems through the generic B1i SN platform. You can also see how the pertinent information is being put in the appropriate places. So the subsidiaries have the appropriate information if they need to talk to headquarters about what the sales order number that's supposed to have been generated is, and vice versa, where the headquarters has the appropriate information to talk back to the subsidiary about what purchase order number was generated, and so forth. Now that was a very simple demo that goes over the integration technology between one or more SAP Business One systems. We'll go back to our PowerPoint. Actually, before we go to our PowerPoint, I wanted to show you in B1i SN some of the setup information. Scroll down. And we'll go back into B1i SN. And for the moment, I'm just going to close the message log. Now, the first thing when you start out is you define your systems or your landscape. Your landscape is a definition of the systems. What you can see on the left-hand side is the different types of systems that we're trying to integrate using B1i SN as our generic integration platform. The two that we're most concerned of at the moment, of course, is the B1 2007 headquarters and the Business One 2000 subsidiary and how those were generated. Earlier I referenced how easy it was to create a new system and specifically pick the appropriate connector. If I were to go ahead and create a new system, basically what I wanted to show you was that when you create a new system, from the system type drop-down, you can see the different connectivity that you have. Now, you don't have to worry about specifically whether it's an RFC connectivity or whether it's the DI API. You simply have to pick the appropriate version that you want to connect with for system, and it understands natively what connector to use. You can also see SAP Business One version 8.8, which is currently in ramp-up, available. And then, of course, on the SAP Business Suite side, the newest version, the ECC 6.0, as well as other flat file systems, HTTP systems, and, of course, web services. So, again, just by picking the appropriate adapter. We're going to go ahead and give you an overview quickly. If I look at my Business One 2007 headquarters, once you create a system and you pick the system type, give it a name, and save it, you then have the ability to put in information that simply states how to connect to it. Not technical, just simply you need to know what your Business One server's name is, license server, what company you want to connect to, or database for Business One you want to interact with, version of SQL Server you may be using, which we also support 2008, and then other appropriate connectivity information for SQL Server, Business One, and what the path is to your DI API connectivity. Once this is set up and saved, you have the ability to test your connection to make sure that the information you have put in can appropriately connect to the system, in this case Business One. By clicking on Test Connection, you can see that it'll either tell me I've successfully connected, or it will tell me if I did not. And if it did not, then it will give me information about what it believes the issue is, and I can take the corrective actions. You can see in this case, when I look at the subsidiary, because they're two Business One systems, basically the information is very similar, if not identical. It's the information, again, about my system or my adapter that I'm choosing for connectivity, my server information, and then really the difference here is, in this example, is the company database. Now, this happens to be on one system. It could be, on a system in the U.S. with another system sitting over in Europe or China, as an example. Doesn't matter. Once you've set up your landscape to set up the connectivity for the systems, under the Application Manager, Manage Applications, and then under what's called the Subsidiary Integration Console, this is where you tie the business scenarios together to be able to use them. Typically, you'll set up a landscape, again, a little different from what we just looked at. I've already assigned them, so I'll show you maintaining them. It's information about the individual companies themselves and how they should connect. So if I look at the B1 2007 headquarters needs to know what customer may be ordering from them, or in the case of the subsidiary, who's the vendor. You can see lots of information in here. It gets filled in based on the connectivity or the system you're using. You'll notice credit control area sales, that's mainly for the SAP Business Suite. I don't need it for this connection to Business One, so I don't have to fill that in. Same thing for the subsidiary. I don't need this information for the subsidiary, but I do need to tell it what the customer number is in the case of the customer that resides over in the headquarters and then the vendor here that resides over in the subsidiary. Once you have the appropriate information in here, typically you'll go in under your business processes. Your business processes are where you set up what specific transactions that you want to use in this case. For us under test, because it's been extended, it was developed new. It's not an out-of-the-box scenario, but it was developed to mirror an out-of-the-box scenario for SAP Business One using our graphical B1i SN tools, so it was very easy to set up. The business package itself basically has information about the sender system and the receiver system. Once you define the appropriate information and fields and criteria for this business package, you simply activate it. Once it's activated, it's available for use between your systems. You also have data management. Data management allows you to do value mapping. Value mapping is as opposed to having to get down into the XML or the XSLT when you need to translate things as simple as credit card types. You have them defined in one system slightly different than another system. You may have a system in Europe that defines credit cards differently than a system set up in the US. You can easily go in, choose the particular option here, such as actually a better might be item group code as an example between two systems. Once you pick that, you can define multiple sender and receiver and so forth, and then you can define the values between the systems. So you can simply say from this system, 01 equates out to be 100 in the subsidiary system. And you can do that for many different types, such as payment terms as an example, which I mentioned, where in one system you may have net 30 as NET30, and yet in the other system you may have it, for some reason it was already set up as NT30. Well, very simply you can go in, tell it what the sender system is, what the receiver system is for the specific transaction, and then add a very easy NT30 to NET30 or vice versa. That's what data management would be used for. Again, detail on business processes and data management can be seen in the previous B1i SN overview done by Nicholas Fuchs, which is also available. And then, of course, we looked at the monitor itself as far as the B1i Event Monitor, Technical Monitor. B1i Event Monitor will go through the transactions that we went through. Technical Monitor will tell you if there are any specific issues as far as connectivity. With that, we'll go back to our PowerPoint. We looked at briefly the landscape setup, and I bring it up back in the PowerPoint presentation again to show its importance in the sense that as opposed to having to worry about details about how to connect to the systems, within the landscape, once I define a landscape, as you remember, I pick from the type the system that I want to connect with. And B1i SN, as the generic platform, has many out-of-the-box connectors for you. We do also give you the ability to develop your own connectors if for some reason the system isn't defined, or it can't fall into some of the generic HTTP, flat file, or web services. And you can see the subsidiary defined very similarly. Now, the business scenario that I just went over is actually not out of the box as far as the out-of-the-box content for B1i SN. The B1i SN out-of-the-box content is for SAP Business Suite integration to SAP Business One integration with the same master product and item, as well as intercompany purchasing, sales from local stock and sales from central stock. We were easily able to take and duplicate the sales from local stock integration within B1i SN using the graphical design tools that B1i SN provides you within the software itself. So these are just a few screenshots of if you're starting out to create a new business integration scenario. Basically, you're going to start with the graphical screen designer. You'll then generate a biz package with a new, what's called BIU, a business integration unit, which is kind of the lowest common denominator or the most granular unit of work within B1i SN. From there, once you generate the BIU for the biz package, you can get a graphical overview and look at the different biz steps that are in them, and you can see how you're moving information from one business one to the other business one. You can see the direction of the object called MyPO moving, if you will, from the left to the right. You can see the receiver object in the green there, or here, which is my sales order, and so forth. So you can get a graphical representation of either what the content that exists within the system or content that you're creating or modifying. From there, you have the ability, of course, graphically to modify the business package, to add different parameters, different things that you want within the business package. You also, from there, can then generate a new BIU, or you can generate a new BIU, as you can see here. So if you look up, we're generating a new, specifically Business One purchase order to Business One sales order, and the appropriate parameters for the BIU to be able to do that. We have the ability to take an existing BIU and make modifications through the graphical designer. We can modify the different object types, again, via the graphical designer. We can create extend system types, with the appropriate properties through the graphical designer. And then finally, this slide is just an overview of the actual integration platform and the technology used. The interesting thing to note about this is that the technical services from the middle out, the business services and the administrative services are all taken care of by the generic B1i SN platform itself. It's really the integration scenarios, which of course, as we've mentioned, you have out-of-the-box business scenarios. Notwithstanding having those, everything else is taken care of for you. If you didn't have out-of-the-box business scenarios, you could easily configure them using the graphical built-in tools. For more information or resources, you can go to the SAP Channel Partner Portal, where, again, you can see the link here, specifically under the Documentation Resource Center for 2007A, and then the SAP Business One Integration for NetWeaver. Here you can find PDFs, white papers, questions and answers, self-running demos that can be used for yourselves or to present to your customers. From the development side, you can go out to the Software Developer Network, or SDN, at sdn.sap.com. Under the Business Knowledge Center, SAP Business One Integration for SAP NetWeaver, off the main SAP Business One page. What you have here, again, from a development standpoint, are articles in regards to B1i SN and development, blogs, e-learning, and code samples. Code samples very similar to how to create from one Business One the business integration unit and business scenario to generate from one instance of Business One, when a PO is created, the sales order, as we've seen throughout, within the demo. With that, I'd like to thank you for your time.